Chapter 20. The Power of Patient Listening. People are always willing to follow advice when it accords with their own wishes. Lady Blessington. Before you stop listening and start speaking, always take the time to consider what's going on with the person or people you're speaking with, that is, their emotional level. No matter how many ideas or insights may occur to you, if the other person is excited or angry or unhappy, it's still listening time for you. Be patient. Give them a chance to let off steam. When they are ready, they'll ask for your opinion and, if they're looking for answers, they'll ask questions. Sometimes a person's emotions and the listener's logic are like oil and water, very difficult to mix. Your tools for charming others. Whenever you are attentively listening and the person speaking seems to be very emotional, listen with added patience before you say anything. Let the person talk and get all of his or her anger or emotion out before you attempt to jump in and offer any suggestions. Most important, be careful about giving advice unless someone asks for it. Your sympathetic listening will be much appreciated.
Chapter 21. Be quick to smile and laugh. Against the assault of laughter nothing can stand. Mark Twain. There's no question that smiling and laughing are clear indicators of how much you are enjoying being with someone. When the occasion and the subject allow it, always be quick to smile and laugh. A genuine smile involves the muscles that surround your mouth and your eyes. When you smile, make sure you get all of your face to smile. Let it go right up to your eyes. Now I don't mean grinning like the Cheshire Cat at everything that's being said or laughing at every mediocre quip or joke. Overdoing it could raise suspicions that you're being phony or too openly trying to curry favor. Remember also that smiles that appear genuine don't switch off abruptly. Real smiles seem to linger for a moment or two. A smile that doesn't linger really isn't a smile. There are very good psychological reasons to allow yourself to smile and laugh easily and naturally. Here is an illustration. Drawn on how humor is contagious. In my early days as a theater director, the very first comedy I directed was Come Blow Your Horn by Neil Simon. It was a grand Broadway hit loaded with funny lines and a delightfully entertaining cast of characters in amusing situations. When the cast and I got together to read through the play for the first time, we all slapped our thighs, held our ribs, cackled, howled, and generally reveled over Neil Simon's wizardry. During rehearsals and as the days went by, we all laughed less and less. A few days before opening night we completed a run-through of the performance. It went smoothly and was word perfect, but it was flat. Nobody in the cast, including me, chuckled, tittered, or even cracked a smile. It was like we were doing Ibsen rather than Simon. I sat there wondering what had been so funny in the first place. Opening night there was a full house of dignitaries, critics, and well-turned-out theatergoers. I sat in my usual place in the back row on the aisle, so I could leave in a hurry if the audience turned ugly, just kidding, and have never been so anxious. The lights dimmed, the curtain went up, and the play began. Within minutes, the audience began to laugh and laugh and laugh, and what was most interesting, I was laughing, too. How come? It was the same stuff that I'd heard during 3 weeks of rehearsal and that I'd quit finding funny, and yet here I was laughing again. Why? The answer was infection. Smiling and laughing is very infectious. I laughed because they laughed, which refreshed my memory of what I had found so funny before. I went many times to see that production, my first successful attempt at directing comedy, and I laughed almost as much at every performance I saw. There's a lesson here for everyone. When you charm, you are being the audience for other people, and the infection rule is just as true. When you smile and laugh, others will be inclined to smile and laugh right back at you. A caveat: watch out for people who smile with only one side of their mouth turned up. One should be cautious about lopsided smiles, they could be half-hearted or less than honest. Your tools for charming others. The next time you are in a conversation, wait for the right time to show a smile as the conversation dictates. If the conversation and speaker are serious, you look serious. If the talk is about light, amusing things, encourage yourself to smile. You don't necessarily have to agree with what is being said, you simply have to match the other person's mood. If she is being enthusiastic and you want to charm, allow yourself to smile with her enthusiasm.
Chapter 22. Be quick to praise. Praise, like gold and diamonds, owes its value only to its scarcity. Samuel Johnson. We all enjoy recognition, especially if we have accomplished something we think is worthwhile. When people you are with talk about things they are evidently proud of, there is a simple way to intensify their pleasure. Be quick to praise their wisdom, generosity, thoughtfulness, quickness, cleverness, or whatever is appropriate. You can be sure they will regard your praise as another indication of your charm. Appreciation and praise are vitally important to all of us. It is the fuel in the furnace of motivation. Without recognition and praise, many of us would perform well below our potential. Research indicates that many employees respond more positively to praise than to a raise. Remember when you have seen your child, spouse, a friend, or coworker light up with pleasure because you praised or admired or showed appreciation toward them? Remember how it feels when it happens to you. Ron on a critic's reviews. I can remember as clearly as if it were yesterday my very first major theater review in the newspaper. I was directing a play by Maxim Gorky called The Lower Depths, and it was my first professional production. Depths is a great classical work but a great challenge to cut your teeth on as a director. Naturally, I was flattered at being given the opportunity and frightened by the immense responsibility. Early the next morning after opening night, I raced out to get the newspapers. I sat in my car for what seemed like an hour before working up the nerve to open them and see if it was thumbs up or thumbs down. Then I took the plunge. I opened the newspaper and with shaking fingers turned to the theater page. And there it was, the headline. Great play Gorky, great production Arden. My stomach contracted with pleasure. Then I read what the critic had to say. He saw my faults as well as my virtues, and for him, the virtues obviously had outweighed the faults. I was at the beginning of my career as a director, and his carefully weighed praise contributed considerably to my motivation, momentum, and pleasure. That's what praise can do, and people rarely get enough of it. Yours tool for charming others. One of the best definitions of self-esteem is how much a person considers herself or himself to be praiseworthy. The more you genuinely praise people's behavior, the more they like and respect themselves, and the better they feel toward you. To be most effective in giving praise, you should follow these guidelines. First, be specific. The more specific the praise, the greater impact it has on the person's feelings, and the more likely it is to motivate the person to perform even better in that area in the future. Instead of saying, "You're a great secretary," you should say, "You did a wonderful job on that proposal and getting it out so quickly yesterday." Second, praise immediately. The faster you praise people after they have done something praiseworthy, the better they feel and the more likely they are to repeat the action. Third, praise for both large and small accomplishments. As Ken Blanchard says in The 1-Minute Manager, catch them doing something right. Praising others for their accomplishments is something most of us do not do often enough. You must be the exception to the rule. Praise makes people feel wonderful about themselves and is a key element of charm.
Chapter 23. Use the act as if principle. The best way to create a feeling, if you have it not, is to act on every occasion where that feeling is desirable as if you had it already, and you soon will have. Aristotle. In 1905, William James of Harvard University, the father of American psychology, made a remarkable observation. He said that the best way to experience an emotion, if you don't actually feel it, is to pretend as if you already feel it until it becomes a reality. The repeated actions of enthusiasm soon generate the real feelings of enthusiasm. If you behave as though you are happy or excited, you will soon begin to feel happy or excited. Your outward behavior will create the corresponding inner feeling. You can control your actions. Psychologists have found that it is difficult for people to switch their emotions off and on at will. Emotions are not under the direct control of the will. Your actions, however, are largely under your control from moment to moment. By controlling your actions, you can behave as if you already had the emotions you desire to have, similar to the outside-in approach in Chapter 8. So your actions actually help to create those emotions. Actions trigger feelings. The act as if principle says that if you act as if you already felt a particular way, your actions will soon trigger the feelings to go with them. When you meet with another person, act as if that other person is absolutely fascinating. Treat the other person like a movie star or Nobel Prize winner. Listen with your full attention. Lean forward and hang on every word. Nod, smile, and acknowledge, giving a continuous series of verbal and vocal assurances. The effect will be electric. Very often, by using attentive listening techniques, you will be able to bring out the other person's insights and observations, which may amaze you. In no time at all, you will actually find yourself deeply interested in the other person. You will find her to be fascinating, and her words to be intelligent and enjoyable. Brian on lessons from a long bus trip. A long time ago, I was forced to take an 8-hour bus ride to get home because of an airline workers' strike that had paralyzed all air transport. I found myself sitting next to a scruffy-looking character in jeans, with long hair, who was going to be my seatmate for the entire trip. What could I do? I decided to try out this act as if principle I had just heard about. I turned to him and introduced myself, then asked him where he was from and what he did for a living. It turned out that he lived on a farm, but that he had become fascinated with small planes. He had sent away for a kit and built himself a one-seater that he flew around the farm country. Eventually, he competed in air shows. He went on to tell me about crashes and near-death experiences, and his recovery from broken legs and accidents. The more I practiced attentive listening, asking questions and acknowledging his responses, the more fascinating things he told me. To this day, I remember how those 8 hours flew by as he regaled me with stories about his life and upbringing. Ron on using the power of your mind. I was having coffee with a friend of mine recently, and he said, "You're into this sort of thing, maybe you can give me an explanation." He went on. A week or so ago, I woke up feeling lousy, so I decided not to go into the office. I just sat around in my bathrobe, didn't shave or shower, watched TV a little, and by mid-morning I felt much worse. I asked, "What did you do? Did you go to see your doctor?" He shrugged his shoulders. "No, I'm not the doctor type." But here's the point. The very next day, I got up feeling under the weather again, but decided I had too much work to do to stay home. I had an appointment I had already postponed from the day before and other urgent things. Off I went, all suited up, and by mid-morning I felt much better. Why was this? I said, it was your attitude that made the difference. It's a perfect example of how attitude can affect us physically. Once, everyone thought the reason you felt better was purely mental, but now we know that it's also biochemical. By engaging in behaviors of being well, showering, shaving, getting dressed, and going off to work, you actually change your body chemistry, which then causes you to feel better. He digested the information for a moment. Then he said, so it's a combination of the power of the mind and our internal pharmacy department that makes the difference. Actions affect feelings. In the same way, when you become accustomed to practicing the charm techniques described in this book, you not only appear to be listening more convincingly, but you actually do listen more efficiently and remember more effectively. It's as though by getting your body, the outside, to do the right things, you promote the right attitude, the inside, and the right chemistry. By incorporating attentive listening techniques into your life, the payoff is not only that you appear to be an involved and caring listener, but that you can actually become an involved and caring listener, which will prove to be much more rewarding for you as well as for the other people in your life. Your tools for charming others: fake it until you make it. The next time you are talking to anyone, in business or socially, act as if that other person was absolutely fascinating. Hang on every word. Lean forward with great interest. Pretend for a moment that this person is going to give you $1 million if he likes you. Act accordingly. In no time at all, you will find yourself deeply interested in the other person, and by some magical chemistry, this individual will begin to share observations and insights that may surprise and delight you. Many lifelong friendships have started this way.
Chapter 24. What you say and how you say it. A man's character is revealed by his speech. Menander. The first step toward becoming a completely charming person is to become a great listener. Sooner or later, though, it will be your turn to speak. What you say and how you say it are essential ingredients in your ability to charm and persuade others. Run on speaking with charm. I have a delightful old friend, Cecil Williams, a successful theater director for many years. I acted in several of his productions. He was without doubt one of the most charming people I've ever met. He epitomized all the elements of charm that we've written about in this book. What most impressed me about him was the way he turned every word he uttered into a show of support, concern, interest, involvement, and caring. He had plenty of opinions of his own and many strong ones, but they were always communicated with respect, as an exchange of ideas, not as competition. An essential speaking skill. There are several skills you will need when it is your turn to speak, and they'll be covered over several chapters. Let's start again with eye contact, but from a different angle. Time magazine once scooped the other media and did the first major interview with Mikhail Gorbachev, the then visiting Russian president. His ability to communicate with power and forcefulness, his ideas on economic and political reform, was one of the major reasons he ascended to the presidency of the USSR. One of his strongest communication skills was noted by the Time reporter who wrote, "The first thing you notice on meeting President Gorbachev are his eyes, their intensity, their directness, and their power. Few of us use eye contact well. Developing this skill is critical to increasing your ability to charm. The way you look at people. The rules used for eye contact when speaking are different from the rules used when a person is listening. When you're in a one-on-one conversation with another person, look at the other person's eyes no more than 85% of the time. Maintaining eye contact all the time creates too much pressure. With that much eye contact, you virtually pin the other person to the wall. Instead of being charming, you come across as too intense. How do you feel when someone is talking to you and never takes her eyes off you? It can be intimidating and even threatening. Notice the way villains in the movies use that kind of unyielding eye contact when they speak. When you are speaking in a group, you should shift your gaze from person to person, gently, one person at a time. Use your eye contact to reach out and include people in what you are saying, as if you were scooping them into the conversation. Everyone you are talking to should feel the power of your warmth and attention. Your tools for charming others. Make a point of practicing good eye contact with anyone you talk to. Be sure you don't overdo it. Look at the other person's eyes no more than 75% to 85% of the time, otherwise you risk becoming overbearing. Look deep into the person's eyes rather than superficially. It's a definitive way of saying, "I see you."
Chapter 25. The Look Aside. Speech is a mirror of the soul. As a man speaks, so is he. Publius Cyrus. When you are the one doing the talking, the look aside is a powerful communication technique. It is a casual glance to one side or the other of the listener's head, when you momentarily redirect your focus from the person's eyes to the side of the face. Look-asides should be done casually and intermittently. Never look above the listener's head, because that will convince the listener that there's something or someone distracting you. Frequent looks below the listener's eyes will lead them to believe they might have food on their face or gravy on their clothes. Look-asides are not meant to give you the opportunity to look at other things or people. Rather, they are there to release the listener from too much intensity coming from you. In one-on-one conversations, they are essential. Your tools for charming others. The next time you're speaking with someone for any period of time, practice shifting your gaze to his right or left ear, and then back to his mouth and eyes. Make sure your look-asides are short, never for more than 2 or 3 seconds, otherwise you will look distracted. Remember that your objective is to maintain good eye contact without making the other person uncomfortable.
Chapter 26. The Art of Speaking Slowly. Think before you speak, pronounce not imperfectly, nor bring out your words too hastily, but orderly and distinctly. George Washington. Many people, because of excitement or nervousness, speak too fast and listen too little. People who speak too fast can be both frustrating and irritating. Have you ever been stuck in a traffic jam simply because you didn't have enough time to understand what the traffic reporter on the radio said? Near what off-ramp was that accident, and what was the alternative route? If only these reporters didn't speak so fast. They are professionals. Don't they know it's difficult to absorb a lot of information so quickly? If they would simply slow down, you'd have time to grasp the situation and make the decision to take an alternative route. Have you ever received a message on your answering machine where the return telephone number was spoken so rapidly or incoherently that you couldn't get the last 4 numbers? You end up having to replay the message, sometimes more than once, to get the right number. Give people time to think. We all know people who fast talk and are difficult to listen to. You could even be one of them. The trouble with fast talk is that it invariably creates negative impressions and virtually no positive ones. A fast talker gives you no time to think. What kind of person comes to mind when you think of a fast talker? Don't you think of a used car salesman, a con artist, or someone who is trying to manipulate or hustle you into something that is not in your best interest? Fast talk makes a speaker sound less thoughtful and more self-centered, which affects how sincerely and honestly that person comes across. Such speakers seem interested only in what they have to say. Fast talk is a sure way to neutralize any opportunity for charm. Better speaking using the slow down technique. What is the solution for fast talk? There are 2 techniques you can use. The first, covered here, is simply to slow down. The second, covered in chapter 27, is for you to learn how to use silences in conversation. If you've been told many times that you speak too quickly, there's an internal monitor you can use to control speaking too fast. It's called your comfort zone. Just as we have comfort zones on the outside, where standing too close to someone is intrusive and too far away destroys intimacy, we have comfort zones inside, too. When you're doing something unfamiliar or out of the ordinary, you will often feel decidedly uncomfortable. You will have an almost irresistible urge to go back to doing it the old way, even if the old way was not working all that well. We are all creatures of habit. We too easily slip into a rut and then resist all pressure to get out of it. We are always more comfortable doing things the way we have become accustomed to doing them. It's like the ritual we go through when we get ready for the day. First, the left shoe, then the right, then lace the right one, then the left. If you try to change the pattern, it feels odd. A simple experiment. In our seminars, we often ask people to fold their arms and notice which arm is on top. Then we ask them to refold their arms with the other arm on top. Try it yourself. Doesn't it feel odd? This is the same feeling you have when you attempt to change an old habit. But all growth and personal development comes from forcing ourselves out of our comfort zones into the zone of discomfort. If we never challenge our comfort zones, we will never change, and that includes changing for the better. Old habits die hard, and rapid speaking is among the most persistent of them. If it's a habit you are having trouble kicking, the very least you should do is make sure you slow down when you are making your more important points. This technique alone will create the perception that you are speaking more slowly overall. It is important that you keep practicing at speaking more slowly. After a while, you'll start to develop a new comfort zone at your new pace of speaking. You will then feel uncomfortable when you speak too quickly because the new, slower speed is becoming more and more comfortable for you. And what's more important, you'll find it's much more comfortable for your listeners, too. Your tools for charming others. Here are 2 exercises you can use to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone and into the performance zone of higher achievement. First, get a tape recorder and tape yourself reading aloud. Speak at a speed that sounds uncomfortably slow to you. Your instinct may demand that you speak at your old speed, but pay no attention to it. Now, play back the recording. You will soon discover that although you sounded slow to yourself when you spoke, it will sound just right on the recording. You can check this out by asking a friend or family member to listen to your recording. Second, use the same technique during a conversation with a friend. Though the tempo may still feel too slow to you, it will almost certainly be fine for the listener. Remember, in the early stages of learning to slow your speech, you will and must feel uncomfortable. If not, then you're probably still speaking at your old, quick speed.
Chapter 27. The Eloquence of Silence. He who does not understand your silence will probably not understand your words. Elbert Hubbard. In the early days of his presidency, George W. Bush was judged to be a rather poor speaker. Sometimes it was almost painful to watch his bungled attempts to get his message across in his prepared speeches. something happened along the way that improved his ability to speak more effectively. His aides hired some of the top speechwriters in the business. But in addition to better speech material, there was something else. He learned to speak with greater clarity and impact by using pauses, even if they were used too often at times. The change was significant and approval ratings for his speech delivery rose. Pausing gives a person time to think, to keep control of the content, and it gives the audience a chance to relate to what's being said. You can become a better speaker simply by pausing for a second or two at various intervals during your delivery. It is during the silences that your listeners will have the chance to reflect on what you say. They are able to picture in their minds what you are talking about. They have the opportunity to weigh your meaning, to connect and respond to your feelings. In addition, pauses allow listeners to have an inner dialogue with you. They actually talk in their heads, expressing their inner thoughts. As a listener, haven't you often found yourself saying things in your head like, "I disagree," or "What a good idea," or "I read something about that," etc.? The more inner dialogue you inspire, the stronger your connection with your listeners will be. Here is an important secret about the art of speaking well: you can't go wrong with silence. Even if you don't always pick the ideal place for a silence, your listener won't know the difference. He will be too involved with you and what you are saying. In a conversation, nobody thinks, "Now, wait a minute, that pause was in the wrong place." Your tools for charming others. Practice pausing at the end of a thought, or just after having made a key point. This technique helps a listener to know where one thought ends and another begins. Remember to pause especially after you've said something important, complicated, or unusual. Let the listener digest what you've said while giving yourself time to think and to breathe.
Chapter 28. Excessive fillers are charm killers. The poor speak very fast, with quick movements, to attract attention. The rich move slowly and they speak slowly. They don't need to get your attention because they've already got it. Michael Caine. Inexperienced, unprepared, or nervous speakers often fill their sentences with sounds such as and They're known as fillers. Fillers are a way of creating the space to give us time to think. We use them in an attempt to hold on to the listener's attention while we're trying to find the right thoughts and words. Your fillers are saying, "Don't stop listening, I haven't finished yet, just hang on." It can be terribly irritating when somebody and their way through a conversation. You may begin to get a knot in the pit of your stomach, or your mind may be saying, "For heaven's sake, get on with it." Unless you have a particular desire to cling to these peculiar and incomprehensible noises, get rid of them. Nobody likes to hear them. Fillers are charm busters. Your tools for charming others. The best way to eliminate fillers is to slow down your speaking style and deliberately use more silences. It is as simple as that. If you use silences, fillers disappear. Whatever you do, don't be overly self-conscious in trying to avoid fillers. You don't know where and when they're going to happen. Trying to anticipate an unconscious act could drive you crazy. Instead, concentrate on using silences every time you feel an emerging from your lips. Incorporate silences into your everyday conversations, especially whenever you realize that you are speaking too quickly, and the fillers will take care of themselves.
Chapter 29. Charming people with your voice. Any man may speak truly, but to speak with order, wisely, and confidently, of that, few men are capable. Montaigne. The sound of your voice has a profound influence on the mood and receptivity of the person you are talking to. The mere tone of your voice accounts for 38% of your message. As noted previously, body language and the words themselves are responsible for the rest. Who would you prefer to listen to? Someone with a high, shrill voice that pierces your ears and makes you wish you were somewhere else? Or someone who is able to charm you with a warm, full voice that makes you feel as though you're being wrapped in a cashmere blanket? It's no contest. Cashmere wins every time. What about monotonous and boring voices? Blah voices, we call them. They are sure to reduce both the attention and the receptivity of the listener. You have to use your voice the way storytellers do, with animation and color that makes whatever you talk about, even if it's just the weather or the stock market, sound interesting. Resolve to be a storyteller rather than a talking fax machine. Lower your voice. When you want to sound close, friendly, warm, reassuring, intimate, or caring when you speak. Keep your voice in the lower range where the deeper sounds are. The lower to middle tones are also great when you want to reason with the other person or show that you care or are being thoughtful. Also, remind yourself to slow down. It's very difficult to be close, friendly, warm, or thoughtful when you're speaking too quickly. Most of us tend to slow down naturally when expressing our deeper emotions. Try this, say quickly, "I'm deeply concerned about you. You mean a lot to me." Now try it more slowly. It will sound much more sincere and real. Pick up the tempo. On the other hand, if you have a flat voice, push yourself out of your comfort zone and pick up the tempo when you want to sound excited or energized. Use the upper sounds of your voice, but not too high. Vary your speed and tone. Choose your pace and tone based on what you're talking about and the mood you want to create. Deeper vocal sounds suggest size and strength. Higher sounds convey smallness and weakness. If you hear a deep barking behind a door, you don't expect to see a Chihuahua. If you hear high-pitched barking, you don't expect to see a Great Dane. Powerful people deliberately speak more slowly and with lower tones. New voice, new career. There was a prominent football player who was about 6 feet 7 inches tall and weighed about 280 pounds. He was a great player, but though he was a giant on the field, in everyday life he had the voice of a Chihuahua. Very incongruous. With coaching, he learned to change the way he used his voice. This new, deeper voice changed his life. He ultimately left football and became a successful sports commentator on television. Your tools for charming others. First, select an interesting chapter or article from a book or magazine that is easy to read and speak. Then read this material into a tape recorder at a leisurely pace. Gently lower your voice toward the deeper, warmer tones that you can comfortably reach. Don't force it. Let it come naturally, varying your tone up and down. Repeat this exercise until you are pleased with the result. Second, play this pleasant-sounding voice of yours over and over again at home and in your car. As your new voice imprints itself on your subconscious, you will find yourself speaking in that same tone of voice in your everyday conversations. When you use the deeper sounds more frequently, the overall perception your listener forms is that of a richer and warmer voice and a more charming personality.